What's up, gente? What's up, Raza? So, the US is getting ready to invade Iran. Should that matter? Let's talk about it. War is bad. No matter how people cut it up, war is an ugly thing. If you know anything about war, if you've spoken to people who've served, including Vietnam veterans who were put through hell, those veterans will tell you war is an ugly thing. They don't even want to talk about it. But it's what happens to the young people that go fight these wars. And first of all, I want people to know that the United States is trying to leverage itself, situate itself and position itself in a place where it's always wanted to be and been, and that's trying to stay in control for military purposes of the Middle East. But a lot of this stuff is not new. If you look at ancient texts, if you look at even the Bible, if you're Christian, right? If you look at any of these old manuscripts, texts, whatever you want to call them, they cite these locations where people lived. And a lot of these people were religious, some of them were not, but for the most part, those are places that, as time went by, especially with European colonization, they found resources, they found oil, they found, and when I say that, I'm talking about the European powers, including Great Britain and France, which I'm going to, refer to specifically here as well. But they found these places basically to be of great interest because of the resources. To truly understand what's going on in Iran, we got to do a little bit of history here because unfortunately people talk and they don't know the history of Iran. What happened? Why do we hate Iran? Why should we hate Iran? That goes back to when a lot of us, especially were in high school after the 1979 revolution in Iran, where they took American hostages. But that's not when this started. This goes way back. In 1953, the people had elected a leader in Iran, and the people wanted a leader to that would break away from control of European powers, including the United States. Well, they elected somebody to do that, and they started doing that. This leader was doing that. He nationalized a lot of things, including things like oil, which, by the way, according to the British, according to the United States, that was their bloodline, right? That was the way they kept that money coming in. But in 1953, along with the help of the Bush family, grandfather of George W. Bush, they overthrow this leader who was elected by the people. They overthrow this leader, put him in prison, and he dies in prison. And they install a puppet. And this puppet is there to answer to the United States and Great Britain. They're there to answer to the United States and France. They're there to answer to the United States and every other Western power who's going to control the money that comes out of there via oil, through oil. So they have this puppet government that not just represses the people, not just keeps down the people, bows down to the West. And so these people are living under this rule. It's a repressive rule, oppressive rule, and it's a hierarchy where basically now you've got a puppet government doing as the United States says. Well, comes 1979, and a lot of revolutionary movements are still moving, going throughout the world because of the 60s revolutionary movements, where you saw Africa, get rid of a lot of the white countries, European countries that controlled them. You saw Che Guevara do a lot in Cuba, Latin America, and Africa. You saw those revolutionary movements during this time. But during the 70s, a lot of these people had seen this. They launched their own revolution, and they take American hostages and they hold them and they detain them. And what they want, they don't want to kill the American hostages. My understanding, they didn't even kill a single American hostage, but they definitely demanded that the United States leave. So they took over an embassy. They held the hostages for a couple months. Right? And so Ronald Reagan comes in and they do release the hostages because, after all, the United States promised them that they're leaving. Well, Iran is now called and labeled a terrorist state because they got rid of a terrorist puppet government. Makes no sense, right? You somebody's trying to kill you, you get rid of the killer, and now you're accused of being the killer. That's what the United States basically has done since 1979. And they try to control the message through propaganda, and they try to control the message through popular media and liberal outlets that basically pump the US CIA line about, well, who's the enemy and who's not. And just for the record, I know that you've got a religious leader people say should not have been there. And for people who know me, I am not a very religious person. Matter of fact, I'm very hands off. I back away from a lot of religions a lot of times because there is a lot of dogma. But you have to acknowledge that the people overthrew the government to try to put somebody in that was for the people. That's why you got these leaders right now that have been in power in Iran since 1979, bucking the United States, saying, "No, you will not come in here and overtake us. We want to rule ourselves." That's what we got to understand is that the United States, the CIA, the Western powers, including Great Britain and France, they've prevented people from having self-determination, ruling themselves. They made the situation worse for people like they have in Cuba. Like, for many years in Mexico, they controlled the Mexican presidents. But this is the time now in Iran where they've been doing this. And unfortunately, Iran has tried to get their life together, their society together, but the CIA, under both Republicans and Democrats, have been out there trying to wage war, trying to starve them to death, trying to do whatever possible to get them to bow. And now here comes Trump with this cowboy mentality where he doesn't care because one, he wants to stay in office even after this election when he's not supposed to. So he's got to start a war. Here he is trying to create a national emergency. More than likely, you'd have a war that go on forever because this Iranian, the leadership, they're not going to bow down. They got weapons. They've launched them back at the United States when and Israel when they struck at them last year. And so they're not the same governments that the U.S. has been used to kicking around and telling you what to do. And so they're not about to bow down. But here's my point about today too, and why we should care. We at Raza Chicana, as Mexican Americans, as quote unquote Latinos, whatever you want to call us with these indigenous blood, our black brothers and sisters, our Asian brothers and sisters, and poor whites. Yes, poor whites, you too. It's our kids who are sent to fight and die in these wars. It's our kids, our children who are sent to die and fight in these wars and come back with everything from dismemberment to trauma to even, yes, suicidal thoughts to where they can't function anymore, a poisoning from weapons that the United States tests during these wars. It's our children in these poor communities of color, especially Raza, who go fight these wars in great numbers, and we aren't taken care of. They're not taken care of. The rich are not sending their kids. George W. Bush did not send his kids to Iraq. Barack Obama didn't send his kids to the Middle East. Trump here didn't send his kids anywhere. These people have never sent their kids to fight and die in a war. It's very rare that you'll see that. But it's our children who go and fight and die in these wars, who come back, like I said, suffering from PTSD. And for a long time, the United States government did not take that serious. And for veterans, they are still to this day not taken care of. Just the other day, the Trump administration had to reverse a crazy policy that they installed disrespecting the veterans, basically making it tougher for them to get the care that they deserved. So even this president, who supposedly was going to keep the United States out of wars, look at how many countries he's bombed and attacked in just the last year and a couple months. Look at this country as the next one, along with other countries that we don't even know if he's about to attack. So they're all the same. All these presidents, when they get in there, they're serving this higher class of rich people, but they themselves are never the ones to send their kids to fight and die in these wars. So if you are a veteran out there and serving, if you have children in the military, just understand what they're doing. They don't have the veterans' interest, the young people's interest. They don't have these kids from poor neighborhoods who join the military because maybe they need a job. Regardless of how we look at it, this is ugly. This is unnecessary, but it's not new. And that's why we got to stand up to it. War is ugly. We should be out there protesting wars. War is ugly. Does that mean we don't defend ourselves individually or as a community? No, no, no. We should always defend ourselves, but we should also raise our voices at times of war, at times like when the military is involved, because it will be your children from poor neighborhoods who will go fight these wars disproportionately in numbers and in the sick, because a lot of these chicken hawks or these warmongers carrying on these wars, where were they? Are their kids going to go fight? Are they going to go fight? The answer is no. It's going to be poor people, and it's going to be the kids from that probably shouldn't be going to fight in the first place, because it's a made up scheme to keep the rich rich and to keep the poor dying.